All right, so in today's video, we are going to talk about the storm threat at the end of the week. If you remember last week, we talked, a lot of models were showing a pretty strong signal for a pretty big storm along the East Coast. We'll talk about that as well as the weather pattern going into the holidays and then into in the next year. So if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button, help the channel to keep growing. I appreciate it. But yeah, last week when we did a video, some of the models were showing some pretty impressive solutions for a big snowstorm on the East Coast. So we're going to take a look at that first before we get into the weather pattern. Now, the ingredients are still there for a storm. The question mark at this point is really about timing and how these ingredients and when these ingredients are going to come together. Will they come together in time to produce a storm, or will it be too late and maybe spare most of the East Coast outside of maybe New England. So take a look at it right now. So this is the Canadian model. So first we have a weak system that's going to be kind of sliding through Wednesday into Thursday, bring a quick thump of snow to parts of the interior Northeast. And then we have this low pressure system diving out of Canada. So this is now Thursday. And this is an ingredient for our potential storm. So that dives down to the south and east out of Canada. So this is now Friday. And then we see a system try to get going off the East Coast here. They kind of get together and form one bigger storm a little bit too late for most of the mid-Atlantic, outside of eastern really New England. Once you get up into Connecticut, especially Massachusetts, Maine, that's kind of who gets hit with this particular run here. So I'll back it up a little bit so you can see. There's your northern stream energy, and then you have that system coming up from the south, and they just kind of get together a little too late, right? So if you want a big storm along the I-95 corridor from, say, DC, Philly, New York, you want those systems obviously to get together south of you to really kind of blow this up into a big storm. But as it is, New England, so Connecticut on northeastern, you're still in the game for this. If you're further south along those I-95 cities that I was just mentioning, you're not completely out of the game, but we're running out of time. If this was 156 hours out, something like that, then this would be pretty close. It would be small changes at this point. But now that we're within about 100 hours, we're kind of up against it here. So starting to run out of time. So if this is going to be a big storm, you need to see the models kind of hint that these systems are going to be coming together a little bit earlier. So that's the Canadian model. Let's pop over to the European AI here and back this up a little bit. So there's your first storm, weak storm moving through Wednesday into Thursday, and there's your system coming out of Canada. Your system forming along the southeast coast gets it actually together a little bit sooner than the Canadian, and brings a little bit of light snow to parts of the I-95 cities. So the European AI is saying, well, hold on just a second. So we'll see. I need to see more support for this. So I'm leaning against it at this point, although it is a possibility. That's the European AI here is showing this is a distinct possibility. I think it's a lower percentage one at this point. If I had to make a call right now, I think it gets going a little bit too late for New York on south, but it still needs to be monitored, right? 100 hours out, changes still can happen. We just need to see those changes take place really right now. But the European AI is saying, hold on, still a chance here. So we'll continue to monitor that. We'll see what the models look like tonight. And see if there's any changes as we go into tomorrow as far as that goes. As far as the overall weather pattern, now once that moves out, we see our big ridge in the west break down, and I'll pull up the 500 millibars so you can see that. And then we're going to see kind of a parade of storms, I think, out west as a big trough moves into the western part of the United States. That's where the unsettled weather is really going to be over the next, say, week to 10 days. So let's pop over. We'll take a look here at 500 millibars, show you what I'm talking about. So right now we have this big ridge out west. You can see that big ridge out west, a big trough in the east. So that's our storm threat at the end of the week here. Once that's still, you can see that big trough, that's our storm threat at the end of the week. That moves out, and then the big ridge that's out west is kind of kicked out by the Pacific Jet, which really digs into the northwestern part of the United States, kicks that ridge out to the east. Some interesting things here on the Canadian. So yes, that is going to mean in the short term, much of the country outside of the west coast is going to turn above normal, but really building those heights over the Hudson Bay there, stretching out towards Greenland. So that's a Greenland block, which that sticks around when we see this pattern change a little bit. That's a pretty big ingredient for big East Coast snowstorms. So that is interesting. So maybe take a step back to take 2 steps forward type of thing here, because towards at the end of the run, there it goes. It builds that ridge again. That ridge is back in place. Now you have that blocking over towards the east, and that is a heck of a pattern that the Canadian is showing here. If this is right, the GFS ensembles not as aggressive with that big ridge. That is quite a pattern setting up on the Canadian. Now the GFS does the same thing, kicks our ridge out after our storm threat this week, and then so kicks that ridge out east. Big trough builds into the western part of the country, and then it does start to build that ridge in the west at the end of the run. It's just not as aggressive, or maybe just not doing it as quickly. But as we go into the new year, it is hinting at a pretty big pattern change going into the new year there. So it's going to warm up here after this big storm, or this potential storm at the end of the week, warm up through the holidays. And as we head into the new year, that's when we're going to take a look at maybe the pattern kind of reloading. And if we have that block there over Greenland or the Hudson Bay, I watch out. Especially if our MJO, so pull up the MJO over here. So I think what's happening right now in the pattern where we're seeing this relaxation, this trough building into the west and a ridge breaking down, starting to finally see some MJO in the weather pattern here. I've been warning about this for a few weeks, that this would be the one thing that could throw a wrinkle in everything, would be that the MJO finally flexing its muscles, and I think we're seeing that now. But as the MJO goes into phase 7, as we go into the new year, that's really when the pattern would start to change again. And if it holds together through 8, 1, and 2, we're looking at an extended cold period. And by looking at the models, it looks like that might start right around the new year. I wouldn't be surprised if it's delayed a little bit beyond that, but we'll just have to see. So if we take a look, this is phase 8 of the MJO. You can see most of the country very cold, especially the eastern 2/3 of the country and the south. And if we can make it through to phase 1, again, plenty of cold around with the MJO going into the cold phases. So we'll have to see what happens with this storm threat here. At the end of the week, we'll warm up, and then after that, we'll look for that pattern, that big pattern change, probably sometime around the new year, maybe a little bit after. But that's it for now. Thanks for watching. See you next time.